Hi, welcome back to my reading corner. Get your cozy blanket and let's dig in. We've been reading When the Dandelions Sing, and today we're on chapter 7, Ice Cream. When we got back to Grammy's house after Granddad's funeral, Grammy gently sat down on the front porch, looked out over the slightly overgrown yard, and took off her shoes. Mama told us to just let her be for a while. She said Grammy needed some time to herself to reflect. And even though I didn't know what reflect meant, I knew Grammy needed to just be alone. I wanted to go out and hug her, sit on her lap and tell her how much I missed Granddad, but Mama asked me to help her in the kitchen. Mama was crying most of the ride home, and her eyes were swollen, outlined in a fierce fire red, and covered in a sheen of clear liquid gloss. Mama, when do they put dirt on Granddad's box? Do they do that at night, so no one sees? When do they? And when do we get to visit with him again? I had no idea of any of that. What death actually meant was a mystery to me entirely. Maybe we would visit him and he would wake up, but he couldn't come home with us. I didn't know exactly how any of that worked, but Mama would know better, and so I asked her, Ronnie, Granddad is dead, so we will not be visiting him any time in the way that you think. When things settle down, I will drive you over to where he is, and we will talk about it more. Mama's a little tired right now, and I just want to get some food out on the table. Grammy needs to rest and take some time to figure out what she does from here. Okay, Ronnie? Well, it would need to be okay because, again, I just knew I wouldn't get any answers. So I went to my bedroom, sat down on the edge of my bed. I undid my tie and threw it across the room and onto the floor next to where my dresser was. I sat there and thought for a good while. Then I decided to go and ask Janet if she would give me some paper and a pencil. Maybe I needed to start my list of things I would expect everyone to answer when I was older. Granddad had died, and so I already lost the answers he owed me. I wanted to write them down so I would remember each and every one. When people from now on told me, when you get older, Ronnie, you will understand better, I would be sure they were kept to that. When I get older, I would pull out my list and go to each of their houses and read them aloud. They would have no choice but to finally give me all the answers, all the secrets they now kept from me for some strange reason. Janet looked around the room, and in one of the drawers of her dark wood homework desk, she pulled out a small, emerald green colored, spiraled notebook. It was no more than 6 inches high and 4 inches wide. It was perfect, though. I could put this in my back pocket and pull it out any time someone said, Ronnie, when you're older, you'll understand better. She gave me a blue ink pen to go with it and said, Here, Ronnie, will this be good? I think it's a great idea, you writing down your notes and questions and all. It will make things a bit easier for you to remember this way. I ran back downstairs swiftly, missing the bottom 3 steps altogether, over to where my room was, shut the door, and opened the spiral green book to the first page. On the first page, I wrote, Ronnie Jefferson McFarland, Jr., Jasper, to my Grammy. Then I figured all the things Granddad had told me to ask when I was older should go first. The problem was, I had forgotten them. And I couldn't recall even one. I wanted to ask Granddad, but he was dead. Mama said we would not be visiting him for a little while, so I had to wait to ask him. I still had no idea how that was going to work, but I knew that I would talk him into coming back home. He loved his home with Grammy, and him and I needed to do our hikes and our walks in town where everyone said, Hey, Walt, lovely day today, isn't it? How's the missus? He would miss those conversations, so he would see my side of things and come back. Then he and I could sit down and write out those questions together. He would remember them more than I had. I just knew he would. He told me when I was older, I would understand. So he would surely remember at least most of them, I figured. As I was finishing writing out my name, my eyes grew heavy, as if they were fighting the notion of remaining open any longer. I grew so weary I dropped the pencil onto my bed and it rolled out of my fingers and onto the floor. The spiral notebook slipped from my small palms and ended up on the floor as well. I laid back and fell into a deep sleep. The day had drained me, even though I hadn't felt it earlier. It had all just caught up. It had all just caught up to me at once, and I was missing Granddad more than I realized. Maybe when I get up from this deep trance, things would go back to how they had been just weeks prior. Maybe someone would answer my questions, even though I was still just a young boy. Maybe they would feel bad and know I was just being curious, so as boys so often are. Jasper, Jasper, are you okay? It was Grammy. She was sitting just on the edge of my bed where I had just sat down, running her fingers through my thick hair, looking down at me. Grammy? I must have fell asleep, I said as I rubbed both of my eyes. Where's my notebook? My spiral notebook was right here, and I was going to put all the questions I had in there, so that when I grow up, everyone will tell me all the things they told me to wait for. It was right here. Jasper, it's right here. Don't worry. You will have all the time you need to fill that notebook up, and one day you will have all the answers you were promised. I know Granddad was so proud of you, Jasper. He took a special liking to you. Him and you had a bond, and all the way until the moment he died, he made me promise to look after you. He worried about you and knew you had some trouble fitting in with your brother, but that will all change with time. Jasper, let's say you and I go for a ride in Granddad's truck. Would you be up for that? Grammy asked. I was up for it, for sure. I put my black dress shoes back on, didn't bother to change what I had on from Mass service we just had, but left my tie on the floor where it belonged. Then I grabbed my spiral green notebook. Before I got up, I asked Grammy, is it all right if I bring my notebook? I might have a question that you cannot answer today, and I don't want to forget it. I want to be sure I write everything down. Will that be okay? Grammy looked at me, pushed her fingers gently and softly through my hair once more, and said nothing. All she did was wink at me, and I knew that was a yes. We walked out of my room and past the kitchen where Mama had been a little earlier. I looked for her, but she was no longer there. Grammy didn't wait for me to ask. She just said, your Mama went to lay down. She had a rough time these past few weeks with Granddad. That was her daddy, and she had to be strong for me, strong for Grammy. It's now time that I become strong and let your Mama have her time to grieve properly. Everyone needs their time to grieve, Jasper. We all do it in a very different way, at all different times. Me, I usually grieve alone, so don't you think I'm ignoring you or not paying much attention. I am. Always I am. I just needed some time to think about things. Granddad and I had so many wonderful years together, and a few we had to spend apart. It wasn't always easy, but he always took good care of me, and I took good care of him. Our life together, it was a balance. A balance is so important to a good, strong, healthy relationship. Some days you are strong, and some days you are drained and weak. On the strong days, you give more. On the weak days, your partner gives a little more. Granddad was the type that had more strong days than weak days, but the weak days he did have, especially near the end, I gave more. I gave all I had to him, excuse me, knowing his time was near. That's what we do for each other, Jasper. Now let's go and get Granddad's truck and take it into town. We can grab some ice cream and walk around like we do when we want to be together alone. Do you know when you and he would go into town, he always came home and told me he felt 10 foot tall when he walked next to you. Did you know that you made him feel so proud, Jasper? Did you know? We got in his truck and Grammy touched the steering wheel with purpose, placing her hands tightly around it, but instead of starting the truck, just sat there. She sat there just as he and she had done so many times, and she looked about without saying a word. She looked at the dashboard and ran her old worn hands across it. She looked at his radio that he always had the news playing so soft you could barely hear it, and at the windshield with a spiderweb crack Granddad refused to get fixed. He used to say that if you fixed everything that was broken, you would never live life. We would always find things to fix, looking at things that weren't really broken, but just not perfect, and want them to be perfect. The crack had grown over the months and then over the years. He just refused to fix it, even when people told him he should. That just made him not want to fix it even more. He would smile and say things like, "That there windshield is just fine as she is. I can see right through her, and isn't that what they are for? She's not bothering me any, so I won't be bothering her." Grammy eventually sat back and pulled the dull-looking bronze-colored key in the ignition and started the truck. It took a little bit to turn over, but it eventually did. She moved the lever on the column down a few and hit the gas pedal, and we were off. We drove down the road and over the bridge, down the main road into town. The drive was short, but it felt like it took forever. People along the road looked over, recognizing Granddad's truck, and for a second wondered if they would see him. When they remembered he was no longer alive and that it would be impossible to be him, they knew it had been Grammy. Everyone waved shyly at her, although I don't know that she saw any of them. She was just driving and thinking to herself and in her own little world. She was grieving, as she had said, in her way. I just looked out the passenger window at all the places Granddad had pointed at over the years and dreamed about what it had looked like through his eyes. Where once there stood a proud bakery, now stood a strip mall with stores everyone saw in any other town. Where once he played stickball on a dirty field, now there were new homes waiting for new owners. Nothing was quite the same, and Granddad missed it the way it once was. "Grammy, can I ask you a question?" "Oh, sure, Jasper. I'm sorry. What is it?" she replied. "Grammy, do you think Granddad is somewhere where he can have all the places he loved as a boy? Like, can he be playing stickball whenever he wants? Do you think he can walk around and start over doing all his favorite things?" "Jasper, that is a very good question." I was hoping she wasn't going to tell me I would understand when I got older. In case she was, I had my green spiral notebook with me. My blue ink pen was in my hand, and I waited. Thankfully, she answered as best she could. "Well, Jasper, I don't know for certain, but I guess, strangely, anything is possible. Granddad was a good man. If he asked God to go back to that time, a time when he was so happy in his life and the place he lived was slower and more comfortable for him, I think it's possible that he could grant that to him. Do you understand death, Jasper? Do you understand why we cannot see Granddad again?" I had to think about that question. I put my head down into my chest and closed my eyes for a moment, squeezing them tightly, so I could think real hard. I started to talk before I opened them and replied, "Well, Grammy, I don't know for sure. I know Granddad is going in the ground, and they're going to cover him with dirt. I know he stopped talking and was put in the big brown box, 'cause I saw that at church. I saw them close the top, and he was still in there. Janet told me a little on the way back home, and she seemed to understand. I wanted to go visit Granddad, and she said someday we could, but that even though he would be there, he wouldn't be there. That part's confusing, but I think we won't see him again. Is that right, Grammy?" We had come to the red light at the beginning of the stores in town. Grammy looked over at me, smiled, and said, "Jasper, that's really good. You are a lot smarter than your age, and that is a good thing. Janet was right in a sense." "Well, what sense was she right in, Grammy?" "Well, she was right that we can go visit him soon, but that he'll not be there. His body will be there, always. He is buried there now, but his spirit, the part that made Granddad, is no longer with him the same. So he'll not be there the way we had him, the way we known him to be. Sorry. Well, where's his spirit now? Is it up in heaven? Is that where Granddad is? He's with God, isn't he, Grammy? I asked, although I was pretty sure from what the priest at church had said that I was right. Yes, Jasper, he's with God. He is looking down right now, I bet, watching you and I go to the ice cream store to get ice cream. He's smiling because this is exactly what he wanted for you, to do the same things that brought happiness to you and me. We are doing exactly what he would be doing today, so he's smiling down on us, Jasper. I smiled gently, knowing he was watching me. It made me feel better knowing he was not totally gone, but just somewhere I couldn't see him. While that was sad for sure, at least he could watch me. I promised myself that I would be good, so Granddad would be proud of me, that he could walk around heaven feeling 10 feet tall because he was so proud. I could do that for Granddad. For all he did for me, I could do that. We got to the end of the street where the ice cream store was, the one Grammy and I had been to countless times, and parked. When we got out of Granddad's truck, people looked over and nodded in our direction. It seemed they were saying hello without saying it, and Grammy nodded politely back. When we got into the store, I ordered my double fudge ripple cone, and she ordered her strawberry maple pecan on a cone as well. The man behind the counter prepared the cones, handed them to us with a broad smile, and when Grammy tried to pay, he said, "These are for Walt today, ma'am. I'm sorry for your loss. Have a good day." Everyone loved Granddad, even the guy at the ice cream store behind the counter. Even he loved my Granddad in a way that made me realize he was much more than just a Granddad. Grammy smiled and thanked the man and told him that Walt was thankful for the gesture. The man smiled in a way that showed he didn't want any attention for simply giving out ice cream cones, but that he was still grateful just the same. He felt it was the least he could do for Granddad, Grammy, and me. We had been in there so often over the past year or so, and I am sure Grammy and Granddad had been in there about 1,000,000 times over the span of their lives. We walked back outside, sat on the only bench in front of the store, and ate our ice cream cones. We didn't talk really, just sat there, looking around, and took licks of the double fudge ripple and strawberry maple pecan. Grammy pushed her cone my way and offered me a lick without saying a word. I took a bite and did the same in return. We just sat. For about 10 minutes, we watched cars go by, people running to here and there, and babies crying in strollers. We watched men shaking hands across the street in suits, and women hugging each other as if they hadn't seen each other in a very long time. People were living their lives, although Granddad was not. It was all strange, but it showed me something. People die, and other people still need to get on with their lives, even if they didn't want to. Grammy probably didn't want to, but she did. She had to, and Granddad had made her promise to. I wanted to ask Grammy so many questions, but I was just watching her gaze around at the street and watch people. I didn't want to upset her any more than she already was today. The questions could wait until later. I could write my questions in my spiral book and ask another time when Grammy had done more of her grieving. Well, that's the end of chapter 7. I hope that you have a good rest of your day and that you'll join me tomorrow for the next chapter. Bye.